Premium quality product. State-of-the-art look. Uncompromised ingredient quality. Our products work and taste good. www.scitechnutrition.com.
I always tell people that Lee Haney is by far the greatest bodybuilder of all time. And I always say that because, Lee, in this era, he had all these guys to deal with, and all these guys, were like on his heels. He had like different guys, whereas I only had a couple guys, that would try to, take the title away from him. But Lee, he stayed strong, got better and better, got stronger and stronger. He kept his family life together. And people don't know that bodybuilding is a real tough sport. And you got wife and kids you got to keep happy. You're trying to keep yourself happy. You got to concentrate. You got to stay focused on, what you got to do and all this kind of stuff. So I always say, Lee by far the greatest ambassador this sport's ever had, because Lee kept everything together. He was always cool, calm, collective. Always stayed in control. Always took charge of all the situations he was in. He was always a great ambassador for the sport. He was always out there, doing stuff for the sport of bodybuilding, trying to make it a better sport, trying to bring it all over the world, and make it, make the awareness of bodybuilding that much more recognized than it was. And he did a real great job at it. And at the same time, he kept his family together, and he kept his wife happy, kept his kids, and all that stuff happened. He was a great man of faith, and by far, ain't nobody come close to him.
Welcome back to Live With, sponsored by SciTech Nutrition. I'm your host, Dave Palumbo, and I'm here tonight with 8-time Mr. Olympia, Hall of Fame bodybuilder, and totally awesome human being, Lee Haney. Welcome, my friend.
How you doing, brother? And hey, listen, I appreciate you brothers at RxMuscle making it happen and keeping the word out there about what's happening in our sport.
Be coming from you, that is a true compliment. Lee, a lot of people, know you as the 8-time Mr. Olympia. They don't know the real Lee Haney, the guy who's, works day and night, for the sport, who's, dedicated his life essentially to the sport and to basically, making people understand bodybuilding. I never really understood this myself, but, how did you first get introduced into bodybuilding? What was bodybuilding like back in the 70s when you started?
Well, it started as a dream for me. When I was 6 years old, I wanted to be Samson and Hercules. And I recall at the age about 10, I went to my parents and asked them if they would be willing to buy me a set of weights for Christmas. And, back at that time, the weights was made out of plastic and clay in the middle. So that's sort of how I got my start. But it was very exciting during that time. Everyone was in love with bodybuilding. They was curious about bodybuilding. And so was I as a youngster. Now, when things start to sort of unfold in the bodybuilding world for me, it came by way of entering my first competition in South Carolina called the Mr. South Carolina. Matter of fact, I was only 16 years old, and I went to that competition, and I had a great time. I was hooked after that, and I had a pair of underwear that I had got from Kmart, which I thought was posing trunks. That's how naive and how innocent the were during that time. But at the same time, it was very, very exciting. So The sport has grown tremendously, over the years, but that's how I got my start. It was a humble start, a lot of fun too. What a lot of athletes don't know, and of course the history, I have the history of the sport. I remember back in those days when the AAU was in charge of bodybuilding as well as powerlifting, that sometime the bodybuilding competition would take place at the end of the powerlifting meets, which was sometimes 10, 11, 1 o'clock in the morning. So I remember going out at 1 o'clock in the morning on the stage with a little dome light hanging overhead to pose. And so it was sort of in the Stone Age back in those days. And again, it was ran by the AAU at that time. And of course, the NPC arrived in 1982, and my dear friend, and I said, a father of modern day bodybuilding. You have to say Joe Weider was that, but when it came to amateur and taking bodybuilding away from the Stone Age, particularly at amateur level, to where it is now, all credit has to go to Jim Mannion. And Jim saw the need to give bodybuilding his own voice, his own identity, and that's when the NPC began, and that's when bodybuilding really started to take off and go. And I was, as you know, the first junior national NPC champion, as well as the first national NPC champion. And hey, back in those days, Dave, you had to earn your stripes. These guys now, they win their class and become pro. I mean, back in the day, listen, you had to qualify to enter a national competition. Then after winning the national competition, you had to go to the IBB World Championship. And only if you win your class there, were you then allowed to go to the Mr. Olympia. Now these guys get a cakewalk.
You had to do that just to get to the pro ranks. In order to become a pro back then, you had to win the nationals and the world championships. Nowadays, you can come in second in your class and get a pro card. Do you think it's too easy to turn pro this year? Do you think that they, in a sense, they kind of watered it down a little bit? Or is it good because there's more competitors?
Well, I think it's good now. There's more competitors. Things had to change. Bodybuilding has grown tremendously, and it creates more opportunity in a lot of different ways. Business-wise, as far as the athletes getting opportunity to endorse supplements, have their own personal training businesses. I mean, we're living in a boom as far as bodybuilding is concerned now. So I say that in a positive way, but then I said, I had to earn my strike. It didn't hurt real bad.
Remind me, Lee, of another South Carolina bodybuilder, Cedric McMillan, who also went through the ranks of South Carolina to begin his career. He was a military man, of course, and he has a reminiscent physique of yours in the sense of he's got the small waist and the beautiful symmetry. Do you feel the physiques have evolved maybe for the worse to a certain degree? They've kind of lost the symmetrical beauty that really was championed back in the 80s and 90s.
I think, I was 254 pounds for my last Mr. Olympia. And that was big. And I think bodybuilding tried to catch up with me by trying to produce other champions who had that same type of mass and size. However, I still carry the 32-inch waist. That's the difference. So, and the vacuum, all of those things were still part of the culture of bodybuilding when I was there. Gaspari sported the vacuum. Lee Labrada sported the vacuum. You had Mike Christian, you had Bob Paris. All the guys still sported that symmetry and that balance. I think when the mass started becoming the number one objective, that the physique started to sort of lose that appeal in the way we saw it. Because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What I saw growing up, seeing Arnold, seeing Robbie, that's what I thought that's the way physique was supposed to be. This generation see it a little bit different, and the judges see it a little bit different. And so you have to judge what's in front of you. And Cedric is a classic physique. Love his physique. I'd like to see him do a lot better. I think he will continue to grow and do better. You see Sean Roden. These guys are really coming along, got good balance, good symmetry, and so forth. So there's some work. There's some things happening here. You look at the winners of this last Olympia. You saw first, second, and third has made his way back, with Phil Heath being the leader of that, made his way back to looking at that symmetry, the balance, and the beauty of the physique. So it's finding its way through. You look at the top two competitions this year, the Olympia and the Arnold's Classic. Guess what? Both guys had the taper, they had the look that was pleasing, that was subtle, what bodybuilding is supposed to look like. So that's a big plus in the right direction.
Lee, let me ask you a question about becoming a champion, because when you won the 1982 NPC Nationals, you probably had no idea at that point that you were going to become the leader of the sport, the person who was going to carry the torch, so to speak, for bodybuilding. How important is mindset, family life, the mental stability of the bodybuilder to becoming a champion? Because it seems like there's a lot of great guys out there that never became Mr. Olympia, the Flex Wheelers, the Sean Rodens for that matter, the Kai Greens. And do you think there's a mental component that some of these guys just might not have?
There's always a mental component. I mean, it makes the greatest of difference there. The whole psyche of striving to be the very best at what you do and then trying to keep it all together. Few people have that. That's why, listen, there's only one Arnold. There was only one Lee Haney. There's only one Randy Coleman. There's only one Phil Heath. If everybody had what the people I just named had, then guess what? There would be 1,000 of us all over the place. That's just the way it is. Only one Bill Gates. It's just one. And that's a whole different league. That's a whole different type of mindset. People like that are born every so often. You can't make a person like that. They either have it or they don't. As far as keeping it together, I've always looked at my career as my job. I wanted a raise. I want to make sure I had a check at the end of the day. So I worked my tail off to do everything necessary to get that check. But then at the other end, I wanted to make sure that my family life was successful. I've been married now for over 32 years to the same beautiful woman. And so I took care of that. When I left the gym and got home, guess what? I was a husband. Then when my kids were born, guess what? I'm a father. So all of these priorities had to be in place. And from the standpoint of who I am as far as my spiritual upbringing, being a follower of Jesus Christ is real important. I'm not religious. Let's get rid of that word. A lot of people being killed by the word religion, and they still getting killed for it. I am a follower of Jesus Christ. He was the coolest of the cool. He hung out with people, winos, the whole deal. They loved him. Why? Because he was cool. That's where I see myself. I'm cool. I'm not going to beat anybody down. My life tells me to be about the positive and not the negative, to build up and not to tear down. So having that mindset is who I am and what made me the person that I was and still is in being a Mr. Olympia. I enjoyed the entire journey. I still enjoy it today, being around athletes, shaking hands, hello, how you doing? That's part of the journey, and I get a thrill out of it every day.
You became Mr. Olympia at a very young age. Compared to the guys today, most guys don't, hit the Olympia, title until they're sometimes in their 30s. Ronnie, wasn't Mr. Olympia till he was in his 30s. Ronnie became, I think, Mr. Olympia when you retired. You were 33 when you retired. First of all, how do you felt you got that mental fortitude? I know you're a spiritual, religious guy, but where did that come from at such an early age?
Yeah, Dave, I won my 8th Olympia when I was 31. And I think Ronnie won his first when he was 35. I was so intense when it came to training. When I was a kid, I would rush after my parents would take me to the grocery store, rush in the store, and particularly to the magazine rack and read everything I could get my hands on about the champions during that era. Boyer Cole and Mike Mincer, Arnold, Robbie Robertson, Roy Callender, Mike Katz, Tom Platz, Frank Zane, all of these champions, Albert Beckles was a part of the knowledge that I was able to pull from. So I used these different routines and eating philosophies that I've gotten from these champions, and I applied it to my own life, to my own training at an early age. I didn't spend time wasting time, and I guess some guys would be going out clubbing and doing other things. I was in the gym. Even when I would go out to date, I made sure I had my weights in the back of the car. So when there was some downtime, I'd pump a little irons. So, it's seed time and harvest. I sowed seeds early, so I was able to reap the harvest early. So it all depends largely upon how much time you give to the goal of what you're reaching to. That determines how successful and how long it takes to get there.
You did retire at a very early age, and a lot of people could say, you still had the best ahead of you. What made you say enough is enough? I'm done.
Hey, well, I tell you what, Dave. When I got to that 7th Olympia, I woke up. I guess the couple of days after the show, and everything was hurting. Everything. My shoulders, my hips felt like they were going to fall apart. And I wondered after that show, could I do this again? And after a few weeks or so, my body started to recover. It started to rebound. I gave it a little rest. And I felt good. But I had a doubt before that time. Can I do this again? Because it's no easy task. It's a lot of hard work. And so I'll never will forget, I was discussing it with Shirley, whether I should go ahead and try for the 8th Olympia. And we were sitting there talking. Now, you got to know my wife. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Shirley is hardcore as they come. She is a jock. When we were in high school, she was the captain of the athletic club, and I was the vice president. Can you believe it? She was the president. I was the vice president. That's how hardcore she is. So we're sitting there. I said, well, baby, I've done 7 Mr. Olympias. That's a record in itself. No one has ever done 7 in a row. And I said to her, well, what do you think? You think that should be it? She looks at me and said, what do you mean, what do you think? What's the matter with you? You have to do 8. I mean, I was embarrassed because it was like I insulted her by saying that I was wimping out. I felt like a wiener, So I gave up my pride and said, oh, yes, of course I got to do 8. But, and that was my push and drive and motivation. I got to go for an 8th one. But, man, she was hardcore always. So I've always had that type of support with her. And so I pushed forward to do that 8th one. And after that, I said, okay, 8 in a row. No one else has ever did this before. So it's time now to use my faith and also my tenacity and so season other areas of my life. Business is the next deal. How do I take this hard work and this sacrifice and turn it into an economy? So that is the next part of the journey. Something that I also share when I go out and speak to some of the young athletes at athletic meetings, prior to the competitions. I say, okay, guys, you got to think about it. I have 8 Mr. Olympia trophies. They're beautiful. But if I put peanut butter and jelly on them, can I eat them? The answer is no. So I always press upon them to be mindful of how, or to be thinking in the direction of how can I take what I know and what I've learned in the sport of bodybuilding, figure, fitness, whatever you want to call it, that's physical, and turn it into some type of economy to make a living, if that's where your passion is. So that was my mindset when I finished my 8th Mr. Olympia and then was ready to go into the business world, which I had already started. I had some fitness centers already. I was already investing in real estate. So that was my mindset. I was ready to change gears and do something different, something new, but still within the same realm of who I am and where I'm from.
Let me ask you about that last Mr. Olympia, because you had to go up against a rising star in the name of Dorian Yates. A lot of people don't even remember that you defeated Dorian Yates in that first Olympia that he appeared in. That was your 8th. And to be honest with you, I thought that was the best you've ever looked. Were you nervous knowing that this guy was going into the show? And what was it like at the show itself, the tension there, and how close do you think it really was?
You know, going into any of the shows, I have never been nervous, ever. No shows. Even the first Mr. Olympia in 1983, when I was standing on stage with Frank Zane, Muhammad Makawi, Samir Bannout, nervousness was never a thing that I've carried with me. I've always had the mindset of I have to beat myself. I got to compete against me. And I tried my best in all season and through my career to create the physique, the ideal physique that the times were asking for. And guess what? That was Robbie Robinson. That was Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was Frank Zane. That was the greatest of champions that had that total package. That was Tom Platz. Showmanship when it came to Tom, no one can do it better. But all of those things I tried to create with my physique and my presentation. And I knew that as I continued to get better in those particular areas, it would be hard to defeat me. But a combination of size, small tapering waist, the ability to project when you pose. Now, projection is extremely important. You either have it or you don't. Frank Zane was the master of projection. Matter of fact, I gave Frank the name the master of illusion. Frank standing there, 185 pounds, he said, well, okay, he looks athletic, da-da-da-da-da. But when he posed, where did that come from? So that's the power to project is something special. You got it or you don't. Robbie had it. It was crazy. Arnold had it. So I knew that if I had those particular characteristics, then Dorian Yates could not have defeated me. So I was never concerned about that whatsoever because I was always focused on my package, the package that was said to be the ultimate physique. So that was always my psyche. So no, I was never afraid of anyone defeating me. I always knew that I had to be better because when you're on the top, there's nowhere to go but down. So I was always mindful of that. You can fall at any time, no matter who you are. So you better have your stuff together and do your homework.
Lee, was it hard when you retired, stepping out of that limelight and kind of giving the Olympia up, because it was something that you had lived with for 8 years consecutively, being Mr. Olympia, being recognized as Mr. Olympia. Now you're stepping back. Someone else took over the crown, the throne, so to speak, and you kind of disappeared in a sense into obscurity for a little while. We really didn't see you very much. Was it tough for you emotionally?
Oh, no, man. It felt like I exhaled. I was able to finally take a breath with that. Oh my goodness, I can finally breathe again. And I was breathing during the whole time. I was living. I was enjoying my family, my kids. Even during my Mr. Olympia reign, I think I'm the first Mr. Olympia to have 2 children during that time. Josh was born, I think, around the second or third Mr. Olympia. Then Olympia was born, during the final Mr. Olympia. So, I enjoyed the entire time, the family life, all of that. So when I stepped away, it was like, okay, we're finished here. Let's change gears and let's be focused on the next area of my life, a new chapter. And I was looking forward to that new chapter because when you're on top, there's nowhere to go but down. And you all of these years, you're trying to, you're clawing and you're pulling to try to find a way to stay up there. And I'm just glad that I went through an entire career. I have, all of my junks are intact. I'm not riddled with pain and so forth because as an athlete, when you train on that level, be it any sport, basketball, football, golf, track and field, you're going to suffer physical trauma. I don't care what anybody say. You're going to wake up and say, man, what is that? And so my being able to walk out at the age of 31, I really feel was in fact a blessing because I walked out, without any pain. I walked out so that I didn't sort of continue to traumatize my body. So my system was able to rebound. As a result, I'm in great health now. Hey, I run, I jog, I still do my thing, no problem. And I like it like that. If I'd have stayed, it's a such thing as staying too long. And as you know, my philosophy has always been trained to stimulate, not annihilate. So if you hang around too long, annihilation will set in.
I love that saying, and I'm going to come back to it in a minute, but I want to ask you one thing. Back in 1990, 91, Vince McMahon of the WWE decided he was going to start his own organization, the WBF, which he did. And a lot of the top athletes of the day were kind of swooned over there with very big contracts, a lot of money. And we know you mentioned earlier, you love the paycheck. Were you ever enticed by that? Did they ever contact you? Did you ever think about possibly going over there?
Well, everyone I feel that was a star during that era was given the opportunity by McMahon to be a part of that. And yes, I did meet with him and his team. My management team did meet with them. And however, it wasn't for Lee Haney. I had a great relationship at the time with Weider. I was also in the process of negotiating with Twin Laboratories, the Bleekman family, which was an awesome group of people, love them even today, still involved very much with Mr. Steve Bleekman and MD Magazine. But it just wasn't for me. Beyond what I was already experiencing, the level of success, I didn't see a need to leave the NPC, IFBB, to head in that particular direction. So it just wasn't for me. And then I looked at the fact that the passion and the love for the sport and the reason or the foundation of it, it wasn't with McMahon. When you look at Jim Mannion, the NPC, the founder of the NPC, he had a passion, a love. He himself is a hardcore bodybuilder. He himself saw the need to create something that will be impactful, that can help change the lives and create a instrument, a tool, so to speak, of those who love the sport and want to take it to the next level. And also you have to look at the father of modern day bodybuilding, Joe Weider himself. Well, Joe and Ben Weider both were bodybuilders. So they had blood, sweat, tears, and equity in our sport. That wasn't so for Mr. McMahon. With all due respect to him, he's the greatest at what he do. His was professional wrestling. And as you see, he's the very best at it. You can only wear but so many shoes.
Lee, let me ask you a question. You mentioned before your famous saying that I always quote to a lot of my clients, stimulate, don't annihilate. Where did that originally come from? Where did you come up with that?
Well, I tell you what, I saw enough injuries over the years when people doing stupid stuff and ripping their bodies apart. When you look at the fact that 75% of reaching your fitness goals has to do with nutrition, 70 to 75%. The other percentage has to do with training. It doesn't take that much to stimulate muscle growth and development. You just have to understand the science of how to go about doing that. And you can do it without ripping your body apart. And so I've always used that philosophy over the years, finding the best way to train. And I just got it, I would say, from the concept of being careful to overtrain the body. You look at some of the greatest of the great in the years that's passed. You never heard of Arnold tearing a bicep or pec or quad. You never heard that from Frank Zane. You never heard that from Muhammad McCalloway. You never heard that from Albert Beckers. You can go on and on to Tom Platt. Let's say Mike Katz. You never heard that during that era because they trained smart. They trained to stimulate, not annihilate. You have this new school of thought that, training a set to failure and doing all this crazy stuff. And as you see, a lot of muscle tears has happened in recent years because of using those philosophies. And then you have some of these so-called gurus all over the internet now saying, Well, there's no such thing as overtraining. There is a such thing as overtraining. Live long enough and you will experience it. You will traumatize your body. You're only good for so many sets. Just like a car, your shock absorbers, you hit so many bumps in the road, guess what? You're going to replace your shocks. The body's no different.
You're right. Very.
You want to minimize the amount of physical stress given to it. So there's a way to do that without killing yourself.
I see people doing absolutely insane stuff out there, and I'm glad 8-time Mr. Olympia said it, because I say it all the time. It sounds more authoritative coming from you. Lee, talk to me about how you got involved with Evander Holyfield, the former heavyweight champion. You trained him. You helped him to come up from a cruiserweight up to a heavyweight, true heavyweight boxer. What was that relationship like?
Oh, that was great. I recall meeting Evander at the gym. We were trained at this little gym in College Park. I would see him there from time to time. Always a great guy, always cordial. We became, great associates, good friends, and so forth. And when Evander decided he wanted to go from cruiserweight to heavyweight, I got a call from his manager at that time. And they had seen, known of me and my Mr. Olympia titles. And he asked me if I'd be willing to help Evander. So first thing I did was make sure I got him a good cook, because I know the importance of nutrition. Evander was hanging out at Waffle House and, Kentucky Fried Chicken. I said, hey, man, you can't eat that stuff when you have a bar that's going to make you $7 million. And I want to make sure I get paid too. So anyway, that's the first thing we did. We took care of his nutrition and we got him off to a good start. And then from that point, we had to create a training program for him that's designed to give him what he needed in the ring. I've never trained a boxer before. So the philosophies I knew was a bit different. So the first thing I did, I got on the telephone and called my friend, Dr. Fred Hatfield, Dr. Squat, because if anybody knows anything about the different type of training, how to develop an explosive athlete, stimulating explosive fiber in the right way, then Fred would be the one. And me and Fred got together. We met with Evander. We set his program into motion. And of course, and again, I give a lot of credit to Dr. Hatfield as far as doing that and the philosophy and so forth. He trained me in. Then we were off to the races. And it was great because they had said at one time, well, you can't use bodybuilding, or a bodybuilder can't train a boxer, and boxer can't lift weights, it's going to make them, slow and restrict them and so forth. Not true. We proved them wrong, became the world champions several times over.
It was a great story. I remember it when it happened like it was yesterday. Now, Lee, you were also served on the President's Council of Physical Fitness. That had to be a great honor for you, I would think, because that's the government kind of like, accepting you as a superior athlete.
Yeah, that was awesome. Matter of fact, I served under President Bill Clinton. FloJo had passed. She was one of the greatest sprinters ever, but she had passed during her time there with the administration, and then the spot was left vacant. And a good friend of mine, Senator Max Cleland, which he was a Vietnam veteran who lost, both arms and his legs during that time. We had befriended each other when he was Secretary of State. I had a fitness center in the city of Atlanta at City Hall East that doubled as a wellness center for all City of Atlanta employees. And it was there that we met on several different occasions. He would come by, give him some health tips, and we became great friends. So when that office became vacant, I shared with him the fact that I love to be involved with the President's Council. And he walked my papers straight to President Bill Clinton, and the rest was history. I was appointed, and at that time, it gave me opportunity to speak at several universities, also with a lot of the high schools, elementary schools, promoting health and fitness and showing the country what fitness should look like throughout, along with the Department of Health and Human Services. So that was quite an honor. And again, to say that bodybuilding is for the masses and it can be used in every area, sports as well as the health issues that our country faces.
Horrified by the diets of our youth, because that to me irks me. We see them exercising more now, but the way they eat is just it bothers me that there's no curriculum on how to eat properly.
You have so many special interest groups out there. These people get contracts with the schools, and they'll give them tater tots, chicken cutlets, all garbage, knowing that it's not good for them, and then not even caring. So it's sad that some of our government officials sit back and let that happen, because, hey, somebody is going to gain revenue with this type of garbage. So, it's out there. The news is all over the place. You know what fried foods do, sweet starch and grease, and we already know that. But are they willing to change? I don't think so. Because when there's money being moved around and involved, you see crap like what's happening all the time. But what parents have to do, what we have to do as a society, we have to take control of the menus that our kids are being given. I myself prepared lunch and breakfast for my own kids. They did not eat a school lunch. So some schools are being proactive in changing some of those things now. They're creating their own menus and so forth, but we still have a long way to go. I love what First Lady Michelle Obama is doing, the Let's Move program and all that she's doing to try to educate parents and our kids about proper eating and proper nutrition. If you think we have a problem now, just wait for what's going to happen in the future. Obesity is going crazy. It's rising like mad. We on computers all the time. We playing games. There's no physical activity going on in schools now. It's ridiculous. You're saying, well, we're going to take the PE out of school so that we can get stronger academically. So you're going to have academically stronger people or young people dying prematurely. That doesn't make sense either. But who's listening?
Lee, talk to us a little bit about your TV show you have, because that's interesting to me. That you have a very big broadcast audience down in the Atlanta area. Talk to me about that.
The team program, Haney Harvest House. Very excited about that. We started that back in 1992, and I'm so proud of the program and what it has meant in the lives of a lot of young people. And I'm not alone in doing this. I am very thankful that I have a lot of awesome men that have joined partners with me in making this program work. We have guys from different professions that come in and share insight with these young men. And for the most part, the young men come from households that don't have fathers present. So we put content in their lives, life skills in their lives that makes a difference, that can help them to become more successful. And we take them by the hand and we walk with them and being gap men. And that's what it's all about. We've had so many different successful stories of people who are young men who've came through that have gone on to become successful adults. And so we're continuing to do that. Matter of fact, I want to make mention of Dr. Bob Goldman, dear friend of mine. Everyone knows Dr. Goldman, throughout the IFBB, the NPC, and his work. He recently released a movie called The Martial Arts Kids. And Doc gave me a call concerning the film, and it was going to be here in Atlanta, seen here. And Doc gave all of our young men free passes to attend that movie. And they had a great time. So, and again, I'm thankful that I'm not alone in doing that. And I have a lot of wonderful people that's been involved. A few people know it, but Jim Magnan has been involved in that too. Mr. Magnan has been with me throughout the years in helping to give us funding from time to time for our Young Boys program. So, hats off to Jim and a lot of awesome people that's involved in doing this.
Dr. Bob Goldman. We live stream his Hall of Fame, International Sports Hall of Fame ceremony from the Arnold Classic every year. For at least for the last 2 years we have. We'll probably be doing it this year as well. And I hear rumors that you might be added to the 2016 class. Is that true?
Hey, you're my ball, Dave. I've already been at it. I was in 2014, baby.
That's right. And I was there interviewing you like a dummy.
Hey, Dave, that's over 50-something is getting to you, ain't it?
50 yet, Lee, and I'm losing my mind already. But you know what? I see in the backdrop a Sandow trophy. Now, we know you have 8 of them. You haven't been selling any of them on eBay lately, have you?
Oh, no, man. You know something? I teased my wife and said, I saw somebody recently did that. But listen, guys, there was no Olympians did that. It was someone who had it as a souvenir that they had gotten. I don't know how they did it, but it was a souvenir. So no of the Mr. Olympians sold their Sandow. That means a lot to us.
Someone got ripped off then.
Go ahead, Dave.
It seems like someone then got ripped off because someone paid $10,000 for a fake Sandow, is what you're saying.
Well, it wasn't a Mr. Olympia Sandow. Somebody did get ripped off. But I'm thinking, Dave, I told my wife, I said, I can just see my grandkids riding down the street with a rope tied to my Sandow on his tricycle, dragging the thing on the pavement. So I better think of somewhere to put them soon.
Let's talk about the Lee Haney Classic coming up this Saturday, October 31st on Halloween down there in Atlanta. Talk to me a little bit about the contest, what's going to be happening there, all the exciting divisions you got, and all the information about how people could go attend.
Well, I tell you what, man, we're so excited about this event. It's the first one I've done since 1988. The first event I did was the NPC Nationals, in which Vince Taylor won. And so I've had a chance to travel and meet a lot of the athletes all around the country for the last few years. And I said, something, it's high time that I put together a competition with my name on it. So now we have Lee Haney's Physique and Fitness Games. And games is exactly what it's all about. We have the fitness games, which includes strongman, obstacle race, gymnastics. Then we have the physique games, which includes bodybuilding, figure, physique, and bikini. So we're excited. We got something for everybody. We have the organization Battlefrog, the Navy SEALs group that is organizing the obstacle race. So I'm very proud to have our awesome men and women of the armed forces involved with us in doing that event. So we're going to have something for kids 4 to 7 doing obstacle race. 4 to 10 doing the obstacle style race. Then from 11 to 17, cover the teenagers. Then the adult races. Then we're having a professional strongman. Dion is going to be there with people from all over the United States coming in. They're going to be battling out for $15,000 in cash and prizes. Then we have an amateur level strongman also. Now, as far as the NPC is concerned, this is the NPC qualifier, and the last one be prior to the NPC Nationals, 2 weeks before the Nationals, as far as Georgia is concerned. So we're extremely happy about that, and we got some awesome people involved. I want to thank personally Steve and Marjorie Harvey. Steve Harvey is our title sponsor for this event. Wow. So we've been blessed by having some awesome people involved. We have Harbinger Glove Company involved with us. Then, of course, we have Paramount Acceptance, also the Himmelgarden Racing Team, Super Fitness, Power Block. We have Sherman Colleges involved with us. We have just some awesome people from all over the U.S. Then we have Don Jackson, Dodge Chrysler that are involved, the Chick-fil-A Foundation, Panero Bread, name it. We got the Brave Foundation, Microsoft. Man, we are excited. We're going to have a great time.
And we might actually be seeing it live on RxMuscle.com if we could put all the engineering stuff to bed, huh?
Oh, yeah, man. Hey, listen, RX, you guys got to be there. And I really appreciate you guys extending a hand to be there to get it out there so the fans can watch this. We're excited about it. This is the first of the first, but just a glimpse of things to come. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you, brothers.
Thank you so much for coming on live with today and sharing your story, your life, and your inspiration with our viewership. I know that there's a lot of people out there sometimes are a little down on themselves, and you know what? You have a way of just lifting everyone's spirit up there. I know I feel like I can conquer the world after this interview, and I just want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule.
Dave, I really appreciate it. And hey, for those out there listening, just go to LeeHaney.com or LeeHaneyGames.com, and you can grab some information, and man, we'll go from there. Thanks again. God bless you guys. Hey, and appreciate RxMuscle.
Well, that takes us to the end of another episode of Live With. I'm your host, Dave Palumbo, saying see you next time.